Hello, welcome to Cleveland Knits, my first time doing a long format YouTube video. And I'm using this format because I'm going to teach you how to make this scarf in one go. One video. It's a very simple scarf, it's beautiful, and I'm going to talk you through a few of the elements of it. So this scarf comes from actually a friend of my mother's called Mac, so I'm calling it Mac's scarf. And Mac knitted this scarf and she wanted to knit it again but had lost the pattern. So I put it out on Instagram and I was sent so many different versions of it, and lo and behold eventually I did find one by Stylecraft. Now I'd actually already worked out how to knit it, and I'd been busy knitting away my own versions of it. And once I eventually found the Stylecraft pattern, do you know what? Mine's a bit different. So the Stylecraft pattern are both very simple. The Stylecraft pattern is probably the bit easier one. So if this looks like something you want to do, the link is for the Stylecraft one is down below. It's terribly simple. It starts at the bottom here, and what you do is you work your way across, adding on a load of stitches and then binding a few off, and then knitting across, and then adding some stitches and binding them off, and you keep going back and forth, and you grow the scarf out to be as wide as you want. Now my scarf's a bit different because what I've done is I start at the very top of this scarf. So you have to decide how long you want it first. That's the disadvantage of my scarf. But the advantage of it, I think, is I've added something called a Picot edge, which is slightly different to this style of edge, where this is created by just binding off one or two stitches as you're growing the scarf. So this is done to decrease, and this edge is done as you're increasing the scarf. So by all means, go and have a look at the other pattern. But I really love this Picot edge. I really love the size of the little bumps on the edge. I think it adds a beautiful frill, and it's dead simple to do. And that's what I'm going to show you how to do. But before we get into the pattern, the other thing I wanted to talk to you about is fibre choice. So what Mac told me about this scarf, and the reason that she loves it, is because it is lovely to wear in the kind of shoulder seasons of the year. So in spring and in autumn, when it's a little bit chilly but not cold. So you don't want to wear a scarf like this. In fact, I'm wearing the wrong scarf for this video. You don't want to wear a chunky scarf, but you want to have something on just to keep the chill off your neck. Now, when I felt this scarf, it's exactly what it is. It's just a little, like, almost neckerchief, and it's very, very light, but it's also breathable. And when I get into this, you can see actually Mac's scarf is knitted with 3 different fibres. And that got me thinking about, well, what are the fibres that you could use to knit with? So I've been playing with all sorts of different combinations. The base of all of them is cotton. Because this is something we want to create that feeling of lightness and breathability and coolness, because you want to be able to wear it in slightly warmer weather, I've put all of these as a base of cotton. So I've got a worsted weight cotton. I love Malabrigo, and so I've used their Verano, which is a Pima cotton. It's a beautiful cotton. It's very shiny, 100% cotton, and it's the right weight. And then I've been combining it with different other fibres. So this one, for example, is knitted with silk, with 100% pure silk. It creates a wonderful, shiny, drapey fabric. It's just gorgeous. This is from an independent dyer in London, Charmaine. She runs a business called Yarntings, and it creates an incredible fabric when you knit cotton and silk together. So that's a really lovely one. This one I knitted. I sized up a little bit, and I went with just two strands of cotton held together because I wanted to see what that was like. Now, I like this one. It's nice and chunky. So I knitted this on 7 or 8mm needles. So it's big, but it's a little bit heavier. it's a lovely garment. Something that's weighty and cotton like this is really satisfying, but it doesn't quite have the lightness and airiness of Mac's original scarf. So I went back to just trying, you know, a good old cotton and wool mix. And that's where I got with this one. So this is a 100% cotton is my base, and that's the Verano from Malabrigo again. And then I've added a lighter weight, so that's a sort of fingering weight. You could go up, you know, a sport weight. Maybe a DK would do it. In a wool, I've used a 100% merino here, and that does give a bit more lightness. You still get the breathability. Yeah, and it's lovely. You still get the drapiness, but again, the drapiness is going to come from your needle size choice. So, and that depends on your tension. So you can make a fabric more or less drapey. If you go up bigger needle sizes, you're going to find your fabric is much more flexible and will droop more. If you size down, your fabric's going to have much more firmness, obviously. So, this is the one I've ended up liking best, so that's the one that we're gonna knit with today. So you're gonna need a ball of cotton and a ball of wool, but you can mix it up, do anything you want. You can hold two strands together. If you wanted something warmer, you can add in all sorts of other warmer fibres. You could do it just in wool. You could add in mohair. You know, knock yourself out. Whatever you're feeling, whatever you've got in your stash. But also the lovely thing about two different strands or more is that you get this slightly more variegated colour, which I totally love, and that's you know, I love that in everything I knit, and that's something that's in Mac's scarf, and it's something that's in most of my knitting too, because I love using slightly variegated yarns. So yeah, let's get into it. This is how to knit Mac's scarf. So let's get going. To start with, I'm going to use a 4-ply. That's 400 meters for 100 grams, and I'm going to use Malabrigo's. So the 4-ply is a wool, and the Malabrigo is my cotton in a worsted weight. So I'm going to cast them on. So all of the knitting that we're going to do is going to be on a 6mm needle eventually, but to cast on, I want something super stretchy. So we're going to cast it on using an 8mm needle. That's this bigger one here. And to cast on again, you don't have to go up such a big needle size if you don't want to. If you feel comfortable doing something like a German twisted cast on, if you've heard of that, that's a great way to get the extra stretch in your work. You can see here that I'm holding two fibres together as if they're one. So I've got my two balls feeding in here, and I'm just going to treat them as though they're one yarn. So I've made my slip knot. Hopefully you know how to do that. And then I'm just going to cast on 10 stitches to start with. Now the reason I'm just doing 10 is because I'd like you to knit just 10 to see how you like the fibre and to see whether you like the texture of it, the drape of it, all of those things. Okay, so 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, about 10. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. I think that's 10. And then I'm going to go back to my smaller needle now. And I'm going to start knitting. And all I'm going to do is knit those stitches off, and we'll just see how that looks and feels, and check that it's got the right drape. Now, I know that when I do that, I'm going to have the right drape. So I'm going to skip ahead this stage. But what you should be doing here is check that when you get these 10 stitches and you knit them, just go back and forth maybe 3 or 4 times. You don't need to do it many times. You only need to do this maximum 50, maybe 100 stitches if you're doing it 10 across, okay? And the important thing to remember is now not to go back onto that big needle, but we're going to be, you swap your other 6mm needle on. And what we're going to do is just be checking that when we make these 10 stitches, that it's the right kind of drapiness for you, that you like the fabric size and the fibre. And then once you've got that, you can slide it onto your, slide it down your needle, or you can slide it off, and I'll do that now. So if I'm gentle with it, I can feel that, I can feel how that is. I can feel the texture of it, and it's fine. It's how I want it. I know I've because it's my pattern and I've done it enough now, but just get a feel for it. The other thing I'm going to do is just gently bring in my ruler here. Now this is where we're getting towards a gauge swatch. I know it's everyone's least favorite thing, but it is important to do. And what I'm going to do here is kind of hold it out, and I can see that it's round about 8-9 centimeters, which is spot on for me, because that means that my overall scarf, when I finished it, 10 times 10, because we're going to do 100 stitches to cast on, we know that the overall thing is going to be about 70 centimeters or so, if that was 7 centimeters, which it just about is. So lo and behold, my scarf is going to be about 70 centimeters, which for me is about right. I mean, my neck's a little bit big, 17.5 inches round. So maybe you want to go slightly down, slightly up, but if you're just knitting 10, it's only going to take you a few seconds, and you can get a good idea of when you do 10 times 10, is that going to be the right size? If it's not, come down to 90 stitches, or if you want it bigger, you can go up to 200 stitches, knock yourself out. Anyway, so let's get on with the next bit, which is to actually make the scarf. So I'm going to undo my cast on here, and when I'm going to cast on the actual scarf, there's a trick to knowing how long you need for a long tail cast on, and it's that you basically need 3 times the length of what you're going to knit. So I'm just going to pull out plenty more than I need, 3 times. I'm going to tie my little slip knot in there, and now going back to my my bigger needle, what I'm going to do is cast on 100 stitches. And I think we can speed this up, because I don't think you need to see me casting on 100 stitches. Do you know what I've just realized? I don't need to cast on 100 stitches. You do if you're making this scarf, but actually I don't need to keep you waiting that whole time. So, and I can show you more of this if I get on with it. So I've casted on, I don't know, about 25, 30 stitches. And now what I'm going to do is change my knitting needle down a size. So this is what I used to cast on. It's an 8mm, and I'm going down to a 6mm now. Okay, so that's really, really important to remember to change at this point, because we need to have the right size, obviously, going forwards. And that initial needle has given us that extra stretch and flexibility. You can see my stitches are nice and loose on the needle here. That's perfect for what we want to do. And the first row is easy as anything. We are just going to knit. So I'm going to knit along this first row, and really this is a lovely simple scarf to do, because there's very little thinking in it. Every single row, the first row starts with knitting. You'll see the other rows start with something else, but it's just knitting. There's no purling that we have to do at all anywhere in this pattern, which, I don't know, some people, certainly if you're a beginner, purling's a bit of a bore. So, okay, so now you can see we're getting to the end of the row, and there's my last stitch. So now you'll have 100 stitches. I've got about 30 of knitting. Lovely. So we're going to turn the work, and this is where the fun begins. So this is where we're going to learn to do a Picot bind off, or cast off, depending on how you like it. So a Picot cast off, what we're going to do is add some stitches on, and then we're going to take them off again immediately. And that's going to create these beautiful little bumps at the edge of our work. I'll give you some more examples here. So this is what we're going for. And to do that, what I'm going to do, first of all, to create the Picot, is I'm going to find the gap in here in between the first and the second stitch. And you see, I'm not knitting through the stitch at all. I'm not doing that. I'm going into the gap in between, okay? And I'm going to take my working yarn, I'm going to wrap it around the needle, and I'm going to pull that through, okay? Now I'm also keeping that super loose here. I don't want to make this too tight. And that's now gone on in front of my previous first stitch. Now I'm going to do it again. I'm going to go in, going to wrap it around, and I'm going to pull that stitch through. Okay, and then drop that on the needle. Again, I'm not going to put, I'm snugging it ever so slightly, but you can see I've got extra space in here. That's because I still need to get this needle through. And particularly with cotton, you'll find this isn't so stretchy. So let's do it one more time, third stitch, and then I'm going to drop that one back on. And now you can see, if you have a look closely here at what I've got, this was my first stitch, this was the original stitch, and then, sorry, these are the 3 stitches that I've created. This was the original stitch. There's a little bit of a hole developed here. That's absolutely what we want to do. And you can see these all sort of twist out of one another. Now what we're going to do is cast them off. So to do that, you can see I'm going from the front to the back of my work, and I'm going to go into, now it looks like I might be going into 4 stitches here. Technically, this is 2 stitches. I'm going in here into the 2 stitches, remember that's of the 2 colours, and I'm going to knit those, that's knit 2 together through the back loop. Then once I've got that stitch, I'm going to drop it back onto my working needle. Then I'm going to go and do that again. So go in through the back loops, and I'm going to knit those 2 together. Drop it back on, and one last time. I say one last time, it's not one last time. So that's 3 done. So now I've cancelled out the 3 stitches that I added on, and you can see this is where we've now got this beautiful little bump. Now I'm going to do it 3 more times, and I'll show you. So that's going to start taking down the size of our scarf at this point. So I'll do 1, drop it back onto the left-hand needle, go in through the back loops again, 2, drop it back onto the left-hand needle, and then 3. And what we've done now is, in addition to creating our little bump, you could also see that we've started to cast off. So now what I'm going to do is knit to the end of the row. And that I'm just going to speed up for you because you don't need to see that whole thing. So you can see here we're at the end of the row, and I'm just going to knit right to the end. Job done. Okay, so we've now finished the end of that row, and it's time to turn our work. Here we go. And now we're going to do exactly the same again. So to make the picot, remember we're going in through between the first and the second stitch. We're going to grab the yarn around the needle and pull it through, and then drop that stitch back onto the left-hand needle. We're going to do that again, a second time, and then we're going to do it a third time. And then we can see I've got my 3 stitches I've pulled through, plus the one that I started with, and the little bit of a hole there. And then we're going to cast them off. So that's taking 2 through the back loop and knitting them, knitting them both together, and then transferring that stitch back to my other working needle, left-hand needle. And doing that again. That's 2, and then the third time we go in between them through the back loops, and then around pull the yarn through. So that's the third. Then we do 4, 5, 6. So this is the fourth, the fifth, and the sixth. And that is how we knit the scarf. That is all there is to it. We've cast it on, and then there's this simple process, starting every single row by doing a little picot, and then we just knit to the end of the row. And then as you're doing that, every time you're knitting a row, the scarf is getting 3 stitches shorter. And so you come down from 100 to 97 to 94 stitches. And what you'll notice is you'll do those picots more and more often, because you end up doing them when there's 7 stitches, 4 stitches, 1 stitch left. And I should say, actually, when you get to the end, it's your choice how you end it. I like to finish by adding that last picot in, and you can see on my scarves that there's that I've made sure that you get a bobble right at the very bottom. And by casting on 100, so by casting on a multiple of 3 plus 1, you'll make sure that you end up with the ability to make a picot right by the end. And then in terms of hiding the yarn, you can sneak the yarn inside of that picot. So yeah, it's a lovely simple scarf to make, and it doesn't take a lot of yarn, and it's nice, simple spring or autumn scarf when you just want to keep the chill off. So you can see, whilst I've been talking, I've got back to the other end of the scarf again, and it's time to knit a picot. I'm going to do it a bit quicker this time so you can see. 1, 2, 3, nice and loose, and then I can just bind those off together. So 1, 2, and 3. And then we're going to do that another 3 times, so we make our scarf shorter. In fact, with picots, there's no rule about them. If you want to make it a massive bobble, you can make an extra 5. If you want to make it a tiny bobble, you could do it with 2 or even just 1. But I don't know, Goldilocks, 3's just right for me. Yeah, so that's how we do it. You can now see on the edge of, I'll move that out of the way so I've got a background clearer. You can see that we've got a couple of bobbles emerging, the little hole just next to them, and that's the edge of our scarf, and that's exactly what I've got over here. And when you block it, if you block it, it'll be a little bit straighter, obviously. But that's how to make it. It's a lovely, simple scarf. I'm so grateful to Mac actually for giving me this scarf and for giving me this opportunity to explore yarns in this way. So I hope that's been helpful. This has been my first time doing a instructional video on YouTube, so I would really value your feedback. I'd love to know what worked and what didn't work for you about this video, whether you'd like to see any more. If you would like to see more, then make sure you hit subscribe, because that's the only way I know that it's really worth doing more, if enough people want to do it. I do love teaching knitting. I do think it's fantastic. And I hope that I've taught you something here. This is a free pattern, obviously. If you feel like you have to pay for it, then please just hit the like and subscribe buttons. That's what I need. Yeah, but it's a gorgeous scarf. I hope you enjoy making it. I'd love to see your pictures of it when you've finished. So once you've made this, once you've got some beautiful pictures, then please come and share them with me, Cleveley Knits on Instagram.